the official class stuff. Let me close some of these. All right, so this is 121, and we're here. All right, up to mod 6, which is about documentation, a pretty short mod, which is fine because I think there's students that need hands-on help. So let me get to that, Canvas, and log in. And if you want to come to the physical class, I moved all the classes to Cloud 218 instead of Science 37 because they have heat in the cloud building, which seems to me to be a serious improvement. All right, so let's get to module 6. All right. There we go, that's pretty good. All right, so if you have involved in a lawsuit, you will get a preservation order. And in fact, even if you can reasonably expect one, you're required to preserve data. This happens all the time. That means you must preserve the data from like a service provider, preserve email, logs of what people have been doing online and things like that. It also applies to paper and such. That's why Arthur Andersen got in a world of trouble because when they were the accountant for Enron, and when they found out Enron was going to get sued, they shredded all the documents. And that went badly against them in court. I see a question here. Need to install Mac on a virtual machine, iOS. Oh, yeah, I don't know about that. Yes, I thought this might matter. There are various people that didn't want to come because the room was so cold. That's what I thought. Moving to a warmer room will probably help. Now we're having trouble getting the computers in this room working, so if you do come here, bring a laptop. But I think the room being warm enough is the first thing. Yes. Anyway, all right. So this would tell you to preserve wire electronic communications. The period of retention can be is typically 90 days for one of these orders, although it can be extended. And service providers often would like to contact the suspect and let them know. And often the court order says don't contact the suspect, and a lot of the sort of privacy oriented services like encrypted email are very upset, and they try to sue back and push back because they really don't want to do this to their customers because their product is privacy. And now when they find out you're just handing your stuff off to the cops and not even telling us, that undercuts their business. So anyway, all right, so you get a court order telling you to do it. Now, when you get to a crime scene, you have to secure the crime scene. The first thing is to record what's there and make sure that nobody's messing with it. So you want to know everything, all the little electronic gadgets sitting around like micro SD cards, all the way the cables are set up, the computers, phones, any hidden devices, battery chargers, all this stuff you want to know. So what you should do usually is walk through with a video camera and just photograph everything. Before you touch anything, photograph it all so you know where it was, how it was connected, where it was found. Then you gather the stuff and you record everything. Forms like this that you're seeing go by an autopsy every time you start a case, where you just record exactly what you got and who's the person that's taking custody of it. Now, you have the responsibility to protect that object and make sure that nobody messes with it, transport it back to put it in your evidence room or safe or something, and then anybody that wants it has to sign it out and record who they had it, and then you have an unbroken chain of custody from the time you seized it until you take it to court and say, this is the computer that was used to do this crime, and phone and everything else. So, all right. And now another thing that's really important is you really should have a standard procedure to investigate a device. Now, often you have to do something unusual because you hit problems, but in general, you should have a standard procedure, and this is why if you watch all the cop shows on TV, they're all procedurals. They just have standard things like put up that yellow tape so nobody goes in there, always get the name and address and phone number of every witness so we can call them later. Just do all the things you're supposed to do. Standard procedures make it a lot easier to justify in court later, because if you don't follow standard procedures, then people can say you were targeting me and doing weird investigations and punishment of me that you wouldn't do for other people. So you want to say, I just did the standard thing we always do, these steps. And that way, of course, all your workers know to do the right thing, and you can train people easier and such. So it's a good idea to have standard procedures, and there's a lot of best practice guides showing you how to seize evidence. And this stuff is pretty much common sense. Make sure that you secure objects, put them in a bag to block the radio, make sure they're charged up if it's a mobile device that's powered on, and make sure that any place you copy the data to is an empty thing with no data on it in first place, things like that. But, just doing those simple rules, one of my teachers told me when he goes to court, he almost always finds that the other side did not obey those rules. Simply by obeying these rules and saying, did you really make sure that drive was clean before you put that data on there, he's able to humiliate the other examiner and win. Practically every time. You just have to obey simple common sense rules. All right, so that's a crime scene examination. You keep notes about anything you find, photograph everything, including screenshots, tag everything so you know which devices they were. And you can use field kits if you want to acquire evidence in the field, but often what you do is just take it back to the lab and acquire evidence back there. And then you have, like I say, you have a chain of custody form, so somebody takes the legal responsibility, making sure nobody messes with it, and they'll examine the form, because it's real important to say that nobody had a chance to alter or modify the evidence. A responsible person had it at every time. All right, then you got a computer worksheet that details everything about the system that you can, location, investigator, make, model, serial number, RAM, BIOS, all this jazz, you know, all the details of the machine, and everything photographed, so you've uniquely identified that machine. And then your hard drive is where most of the evidence is, usually the most important stuff for criminal cases. So you've got the details of the hard drive, the technical details, and then you acquire it. You run some acquisition software like FTK Imager or whatever you're using, and you copy it into a file on another drive. And then you record what happened. Record what you did, record it at a destination, make sure whether it was sanitized, which it should have been, see whether you verified the acquisition, see if something goes wrong. Frequently there are read errors, so you're not really able to get a perfect copy, and when it reproduces, it doesn't have the same hash value, so you just keep going and record that. Just like anything else, it may not be perfect, but you record what it is. And, all right. The server worksheet, they say, is more detailed. There's more information about the server. The server will probably have a lot of drives, an operating system, what you did, how you shut it down, or if you left it running, which would be the best option if it's already running, because it might be encrypted and shutting it down might cause everything to become unreadable. And then if you connect in over a network, all this network information is good if you got it running. And whether it's keeping logs is a good idea. There are some default logs all the time in Windows and Linux machines, but a lot of people have additional logs. All right, and then information about the people involved. All right, and then you got a lot of tools out there. There are a lot of tools to help you write a report, which are sort of like Word document templates and fancier things to just guide you through this. A variety of them like Case Notes and FragView, and there are mobile apps too you can put on your phone to type in this stuff if that's easier. And a lot of companies just develop their own templates after a while. Then, of course, time zones are really a drag. If you cross a time zone or if daylight saving time comes in, you really have to be careful. It's very easy to be off by an hour or something this way. So that's a headache for everybody. All right, so now you got to make a report of your findings. And this is super important. This is the primary work product. When somebody pays you to do a forensic examination, what they're really paying for is the report, especially when you go into court. The report is what goes to court, but shown to the judge and the jury. So you have to make sure you clearly explain what you do, and you have to understand your rules. Don't use any technical terms or acronyms without explaining them. You often include a glossary explaining all the technical terms you're going to use, but you will find out you should avoid technical terms as much as possible in the summary, which is the only thing almost anybody's going to look at. So graphs for things are good, and so on, and charts are helpful. The primary people you're communicating with are non-technical people, the judge and the jury and the lawyers. And so so the front part of your report includes an executive summary, which is for the non-technical people. That's all most people are going to look at. And then there's an appendix, which is all the technical details, the tools you used, the procedures you used, and that is there for the opposing forensic examiner to examine your methods, and then they should be able to reproduce it. That's the detailed part here is only going to be looked at by the opposing forensic examiner, because that's where all the technical stuff is going to be and the output of your automated tools and such. So you have a cover page, which just explains the general information about it. Then a table of contents is nice, but the important thing is the executive summary. And this is the same thing you have for vulnerability reports or warnings from companies. The executive summary summarizes the facts at a high level so that an executive, like a person in charge, can tell what to do. It says what happened in general terms, nothing technical. What did you do? What did you find? And then all the details. This is going to be read by the judge and the jury and the lawyer, and the executive at a company would read a vulnerability report, which is structured the same way, and they will just say, it affects these models of this product, and here's how dangerous it is, and here's what you have to do. And then there's a technical thing. He'll hand that to a technician and say, okay, I've decided to do this. And in the same sense, the opposing attorney will hand it off to their forensic expert and say, okay, look at the complicated technical stuff back there. I'm not going to look at that. Find out if it's true. The summary is going to say, I examined this machine. I found this stuff on it. It's not going to say the guy's guilty, because that's not your job. It's not going to say, I know he did. It's going to record a technical analysis that, in a sense, I found these images. They were stored on this date. This was the account logged in at that time. That kind of thing. That you can say for sure. All right. Then you have to have biography of the examiner. This is why I've seen people that are expert witnesses, and they have a resume that's 20 pages long, which you never have when you're trying to get a job. 1 or 2 pages is all anybody will look at, but your resume forensic examiner, you want to impress everybody with everything you've done, every talk, every class you've taught, every book you've written, so they're just amazed you're the real expert. So you just have to have a pile of everything, and everything you've done in the last 10 years is supposed to be in there. It's ridiculous, but that's, you're trying to impress them that you're a real expert in the field. All right, then you can have, might be something about the purpose of the investigation, and then there's methodology, and this will be the detailed stuff. You can reference those standard practices mentioned before. If you say, I followed the DOJ standard practice or something, that would be a good thing to say if that's what you did. You also have to submit hardware to the opposition, as in discovery. No. What you do have to submit them a copy of the files. So you do an investigation, you'll get a forensic image with a hash value, then you make a copy of it and give it to them. So they have a copy of the evidence. They don't get the original, they get a copy. But they have to have all your evidence. That's true of all kinds of evidence. They get everything, which is why people are arguing about the 40,000 hours of Capitol riot footage that's been handed over to Tucker Carlson, and they said, is this going to affect the ongoing cases? And most lawyers say no, because they already had to hand over whatever they're going to use. For the prosecution, already handed over whatever clips they were going to use over here, so the fact that there's other clips somewhere they didn't use usually wouldn't matter. Anyway, so then you got the detailed description of the media you analyzed, of course, how you examined it, what it was, and your findings. And so the important thing is your findings have to be stated in terms that you can really attest to with your technical expertise. So you can't say this person downloaded a bunch of images of children being abused, because you don't know that. You weren't there with watching him do it as an eyewitness. An eyewitness could say that. That's what they could. I really saw this guy doing the bad thing, but all you did was examine a computer. So you don't really know that he did it. What you do know is the images were on there. They were saved at this time. This is the account that was logged in. There's only one account on the machine. That you can say, but you don't really know. Somebody else didn't have his password and go in, unless you have thumbprint reader or something. That would be nice. But that's why you carefully say what you really found. I found these images, how they got there, and then I don't see any way they could have got there without that guy being logged in. That's a judgment you make. Anyway, so then you have all your details and exhibits and appendices, pictures of things, screenshots, output of tools, the bank reports, and like I say, often a glossary, if you have technical terms, is a good idea. But the best thing is to just avoid technical terms in the summary. There was I remember we had a crazy CTO at the college that started a huge scandal. And a lawyer talked to me, and she said she was didn't want to talk to me. She thought I'd be too technical. I said, it's not technical at all. It was a total fraud to trick us into buying services of someone to protect us from a virus attack that wasn't really happening. It was no different than someone telling you winter air for your tires because you need different air than you need in the summer. That's what you got to do. That's why teachers often become expert witnesses, because it's the same thing. You take something technical and you want to boil it down to simple terms everybody can understand, without bothering them with the technical details. Just what's the point? The problem with teachers is they ramble. You have to never do that. You just say the point and then you shut up. Don't expand on anything. Wait for the question. And so that's the expert witness. An expert witness is very special in court because other people can only talk about what they saw personally or experienced personally. Anything else is hearsay and generally inadmissible, but the expert witness is allowed to have opinions. You're allowed to have an opinion, and your opinion can be interpreted as evidence because you're an expert. So if you impress them with your credentials, now you can say, I have an opinion. For example, the one thing that always comes up is, well, couldn't have been infected with a virus that put all that bad stuff on there, and it wasn't the criminal. And you have to say, well, that could happen. But in my experience, I've never seen that happen, and I think it's highly doubtful that that happened. And now, based on the credibility of the witness, they will believe to that extent that that did not happen. All right. So you make a report. You're hired by either the defense or the prosecution, and you're pretty much trapped on one side for your career. The other side will not trust you. If you've ever worked in defense, it'll be very hard to ever work for the police. And you'll be certainly cross-examined. And so you typically have to write a report that states all your conclusions. So you're not ad-libbing, you say you're the conclusion, you're just defending those conclusions. All right. So that's the goal of the expert witness, is to educate the jury and break down complicated concepts into meaningful information. So to prepare you for trial, you have to prepare a written report, which is the normal thing that must specify all the conclusions you had. And that's what you're going to talk about. A complete statement of all the opinions you will express and the basis and reasons for them. Then all the facts and data, exhibits, your qualifications, list of other cases you've been on, and a statement of how much you were paid. This is all required. All right, you make sure you're up to date. Make sure you can be clear and convincing in court and not rattled. That's the problem. I've sure seen him get rattled. It's ridiculous. All right. And by the way, you're allowed to bring notes, of course. You might have to consult your notes and ask you on what date did you do this and how big was that drive and stuff. That's quite reasonable for you to have notes. All right. You can be asked hypothetical questions. Like I say, is it possible that some malware did this? And then you will be able to try to give your answer rooted in facts. So you can say, in my experience, I've never seen that happen. I've been doing this for 20 years. That's a fact. All right. Always be courteous to everybody. Don't get excited. Never interrupt anybody or talk over anybody, because as a reporter, we're recording everything that goes down. And always be clear about who did what and when. Don't say probably, maybe, I'm not sure. That's all garbage. Say, I know this. This is a fact. And I ask you something else, you say, I don't know that. That's outside my domain of expertise, or I did not perform that investigation. You know, they want facts. You either know it or you don't. And stuff you know you're confident about and you defend, and the stuff you don't know, you don't try and persuade them. You say, I do not know that. This helps. I must say, there are teachers that try to pretend they know stuff they don't. And I've never gotten in any trouble telling students I don't know things. Nobody ever gets mad at you for that. There's a popular myth that people don't want to hear you don't know, but I've never noticed any problem. There's a ton of stuff I don't know. Always some student walks in with some new thing and says, I haven't even heard of it. And I said, well, okay, I haven't heard of it. Let's hear about it, you know. Anyway, and of course, be clear in your technical numbers, your measurements and stuff. All right, well, you also have to submit, yeah, we've seen an answer. All right, that question. All right, let's try a Kahoot. All right, and I think this room is better, except for the fact that those computers don't work, and maybe we can figure out how to get them working. But if not, we might be able to bring some over from the other room. That'd be another way to get a couple computers working in here if we really need them. All right, Mod 6. Oh, that's not the right way. I got to hit Start. Okay. There we go. Maybe not too many players today. Let's see how many I got online. Online I got 16. There might be more. I'll give it a few more seconds. Did I stop streaming or something? Let's see. Nope, still going. The game pin is up there, 268-2096. The number is cut off. Oh, that's funny. Oh, you're right. My face is in the way. Ah, thank you. That's the problem. Let me make this skinnier. Good. Since I moved to a different room. There we are. Okay, thank you. Good. There's always something. And let me see if I can figure out how to move my face over here. Because every time you move to a different room, the resolution of things is different. See, where's my video cap? Won't let me move it. Well, anyway, this will do good. All right. That class gets really cold. Yes. Yeah, well, this room is plenty warm. In fact, it's too warm. You have to open the windows to cool it off, which is, that City College, the only choices. They're too hot and too cold. Oh, yeah. Anyway. Good. He's trying to get the computer going. Good. You ought to be able to connect them to the wireless network if they'll boot up. Anyway. Oh, there's no Wi-Fi. Well, I might be able to find one in my office. Get a couple of them going. All right, we might be ready to do this Kahoot. I'll give it a few more seconds. All right, let's give it a shot. All right, a process performed by taking photographs. All right, that's documenting a scene, of course. Good. All right, which one will prevent files from being deleted for 90 days? Yep, that's the preservation order. Good. All right, what part of a report lists the college degrees of the examiner? That's it, the biography, of course. All right, it's not a finding. The findings is from examining the evidence. All right, what part includes photographs of seized objects? 2 typos in a single sentence, a new record. Those are exhibits, of course. All right. Fair enough. So, right, car. And B. Let's see. Billy's with him. I'm sure it's so sure about D. All right. So, all right, let me stop the recording.